Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to show you how to take a soft piezo like this that I purchased on eBay, install it into the acoustic guitar, and we'll try not to beat the guitar up as much as I usually do. I'm going to have another video that shows how to put a solid one in, but this is as you see, this is a flexible cord on it. This is a flexible piezo that fits under the saddle of an acoustic guitar. It comes with a preamp that you install right here. And none of it's easy, but let's give it a shot. Well, it's all a bit backwards today because I lost the original footage that showed the guitar, and I removed everything and took it apart. But here it's back together again, and I want to show you how I started. I wanted to, in order to put a piezo, when you have to take the saddle out and you have to ream underneath here in many cases, because sometimes if you take the saddle and sand it down, it just flops around because it's too short. There are some advantages to it, but here's what happens. I took this ruler. It has a slot cut in it, and I thought, well, if I put that over here where the saddle is, while all this hardware is removed, I could tape it down a certain way, and I could stick the bit in there and try to ream it without it flopping around, Taped it down, and that's what I did, and the rest of the video will pretty much show you what I did with that. So thanks for looking in, and take your time and do it right, and don't lose the video like I did. Thanks. Alright, we're back with the Takamine. I was lucky enough to look through my stuff. I found some styrofoam that was the same height as the bridge. So what I did was I took a ruler, and it has a slot in it, and it happened to be the perfect size slot for what I needed. I needed a slot that was wide enough for the bit to fit through, and I put it directly over the slot of the bridge of the saddle, where the saddle goes, and I taped it down with the styrofoam holding it up with some masking tape so it wouldn't ruin the finish. And I have a bit, and the bit is tapered. It's a deburring bit. It's a Dremel deburring bit, and what it's going to do is it's going to go down about a millimeter. I need a millimeter to fit that unit in here, that Fishman copy unit. So what I want to do is I want to have the ability to keep it straight. So I have this deep socket hole here for the saddle, and I'm going to take that electric drill, and I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to stick it down there, and as soon as it starts hitting the ruler and or the saddle, it's going to stop, because it's tapered. So the taper doesn't fit in the slot of the ruler and the saddle, which is about exactly the same width. So when it starts hitting that, it'll stop, but I only need a millimeter. So what we're going to do is work on that today. I got the strings off to the side, and it's laying down here on a kind of a soft surface. But yeah, the best thing I can do with it without buying a lot of stuff is something like this, and we'll work on it, we'll get it right. We'll see what we can get. There's the bit. It's a small Dremel bit. It's made for deburring. It's got the tip on it. You can see it's tapered. And the reason for that is we're going to take it and put it in the slot. And I'm going to put it down there, and it's going to go up and down. And when this taper starts meeting the saddle, the bridge part anyway, it'll start giving a different kind of give, and I'll be able to stop. The reason I'm going to use an electric power drill is this, because the fact is, if you use a Dremel on it, the Dremel start at about 1500 RPM, whereas a power drill has lower speeds, and it's a variable speed power drill. And I'll use that, and I'll use a very slow speed, because they claim that rosewood is a very hard wood, and when you try to drill or work with hardwood like that, you got to have a slower speed, or it's going to start burning up. So we're going to try that. Alright, I got my safety glasses ready, my drill bits ready. Let's take a shot at it, see what comes of this. Okay, we're going to take the bit out, look at it, see how far it went. Got a little ways to go yet, so let's try it a little more. Got my glasses. They're real hard to see through. I think I'm getting somewhere this time. Alright, we reamed and drilled this out as best we could with the guide and everything. And we ran into some trouble, of course. Now, if you can see in here, I don't know if it's accurate enough to show you, there's a gap there, and you see the white area. That's the actual wood, the base of the wood coming out. Now, what happens is these guitars all have a curve on them. So these bridges are made for that. So there's different areas where it's thinner than other areas. And that's going to cause a problem, because when the drill went into it, it fell in that gap, and it caused gashes, little gashes, so it's got to be smoothed out. Of course, I drilled the corner holes for the Piezo, and when you get these little gashes, now I thought, let's fix that. So I thought, well, let's use the epoxy in there to smooth it out, because you don't want to go any further than you have to. And I thought, I'll use the straight edge, and I'll straighten it out with that, with the epoxy, so it's smooth. And then, well, I don't want to ruin the straight edge too much, so I kind of decided that I'd epoxy it, and I'd use a new razor blade. I'll open this up, and I'll go in there and I'll scoop all the stuff out and even it out on the bottom, because epoxy's hard, and you need a hard base to put that piezo up against. So you get this tiny piezo wire. Let me get it out and show you. You get this wire for the piezo thing here, and you got to fit it in the base of this. And it's got to be smooth, because if you have any gaps, it'll be quieter on some strings. So you need smooth inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix some epoxy. I've got some cheap epoxy here. This stuff that comes like that. And I'll mix some up. If that doesn't work, I got some other epoxy from the dollar store. And I'll mix it up. And you know what's good about epoxy is it's gap filling. So those little divots aren't that deep. And when I run a razor blade over them, just to smooth it, it'll go into those gaps, and hopefully it won't pull the glob up. And I'll get it in the gaps and let it dry about 10 minutes or more, because I need the gaps to fill in. And when they fill in, then I'll have a smooth place to put that wire for the piezo. And maybe I'll run a emery board up and down in there, and I get it tighter. Hopefully you don't hit the sides, because it makes the saddle flop left and right and up and down, and you don't want to do that. So I'll just keep working at it and get it right. But I'm going to fill in the gaps there, and then smooth a little bit. I could probably use the razor blade to even smooth a little, just to check for smoothness. And once we get that smooth enough, we can put the bridge back together with the saddle, and I'll show you how that goes. Alright, I've marked all the divots with a pencil. You can see the little gray areas there. And I've got a little divot there, possibly a ridge from where I drilled the hole for the piezo. And then I've got two there, and there's of course the hole for the piezo there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up the epoxy, and I'm going to apply it with a toothpick and get it in there and try to, you know, fill the gap with it, and clean off the excess with a paper towel or whatever, and clean it up. And then I'll take an original razor blade. I'm going to open up a fresh new single edge razor blade, and I'm going to go across it back and forth and see if I can get it even, and then I'll be able to clean it up and dry it out and see what I can do. And if I have to smooth it out, like I said, I'll just stick a little emery board or something. I'll stick maybe some fine sandpaper down there and go up and down. It seems the epoxy worked pretty good. I flattened it out with the razor blades, and I took a little ridge runner there by using the bit from the cutting bit and not the drilling bit, and I ran it up and down there. It seemed pretty smooth. So what I did was I installed the piezo unit inside there from the inside. It'd be kind of hard to show you that. You push it up through one hole and I push it down the other one. You have a nice angle on it, so it gets to both sides, and hopefully it'll give me a little base side there, and as well as a high side. It looks like the high side got more than the base side, but we'll find out, and we could always adjust it later. But I'm going to try to get the saddle in there now, and I restring it. And I'm going to have to put this unit in. You have a two-sided tape there, and you hang it there and get it going. And now I have to plug in the battery pack and the cord for the corner. I'm going to run a wire down through the guitar. I'm going to run it down from the pack here and run it around the corner and down here to the corner instead of using the end pin, which is kind of hard because you have to drill a large hole for that. But I'm going to try to run it out the corner of the guitar, and I'm going to drill a hole there large enough, about a little over a quarter inch, so that it'll accept the plug and it'll accept the jack. And then I'll just screw that in there and solder it if I have to, and then I'll be done with it pretty fast. And we'll try it out and see if I've got evenness. That's what you worry about. That's why it's got to be flat there, because you got to worry about evenness. But it did come out pretty good with that. And this isn't this is an old beater guitar, but I'm hoping it'll fix itself up when I get playing it. It'll sound pretty decent when I electrify it, but it's going to take a little bit of adjustment, and nothing's easy in this. The reason the bridge was so thin is because this guitar wasn't built to have one of these piezos in it. Whereas when you buy the, let's say you buy aftermarket Ovation, you know, one of the cheaper Ovations, I think they call them Applause. Those are built with the reservation that they might be electrified, so they have like a thicker bridge. So what you'd end up doing is basically you'd take the saddle and you'd just strip it off for the room that it takes to make this piezo fit. And what happens is it fits right in. But in the case of this was a real low saddle. It had real low action already. And you don't want to really dig into the saddle anymore because it was barely sticking up. And you need to work with the bridge itself. So you bring down as much as it takes just to fit that in, and hopefully you'll go back to the original action that you had. So that's why we're doing this. But let me put the saddle in. It's kind of hard to get in right now, and it's very tight fitting, which is a good thing. And then we'll try to get it all wired up and see how it goes. When I started this project, this saddle here, it's compensated, it had to be removed with a pair of pliers. It fits so snugly in there. Now that I did a little modification and cleaned it out a little bit and put some epoxy in the bottom to fill the gaps, it doesn't even want to go in. It's too tight. It was so tight before it had to be removed with pliers. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to get too carried away. I'm going to go up and down this ridge here with an emery board, and I'm also going to run the emery board up and down sideways on this bridge. Try to get to going a little easier. I mean, the fact is, you don't want to make it too tight when you're putting the piezo in the bottom, because you have to adjust it sometimes, and if you have to keep pulling it out with pliers, it's going to be a problem. But even if I have to pull it out with pliers, if I have to pull out with pliers and it's not real hard to pull out, that's fine. But it was pretty hard to pull out before. So we're going to see if we made it a little lighter. We maybe put a little pencil lead, which is like graphite, on the sides of it to make it smoothly go in and out. But let's give that a shot with this emery board. I'm going to go up and down inside here, side to side, and get it a little opened up, and I'll do it up and down the emery board. So I've worked on this slot until I was able to get this piece back, and it doesn't fit uniformly. You know, when you take on a job like this and you have to pull the saddle out with a pair of pliers because it fits so tight, you're already looking at a problem, which I should have really thought about. But what happens is I've got it to fit in there fine. It doesn't slide up and down without catching here and there. It's not just because of the slots in the bottom being bad. It's about different factors. You know, you've got wood, it's a natural thing. It could have a curved slot. This piece is plastic. It could be curved. Here's the other thing I didn't show you. On the bottom of this, I don't know if this allows me to show you, you see there's little holes there, you know, when it was molded. And the problem with that is this. This one has where it collapsed and it broke on the one side. Let's back this out. Let's see here. Well, there's holes. These are, when you have them laying against the piezo wire here that transmits the sound, if it's not even for each string, it's going to be dead for some strings. It'll be too quiet and it won't convey itself very evenly. It'll sound bad, in other words. Now, it's going to lay in the bottom here. And what's going to happen is I'm going to put this in and I'm going to tap it down. Now, it doesn't seem to be tapped down very good. It doesn't seem to go in as good as I want it to. I've pushed it down and it snapped in place and stayed there, but I found I could remove it without pliers by wiggling it back and forth, and it comes out. So I think I'm going to stick with what I got here, and I'm going to put this together with the piezo underneath it. I'm going to wire it to an amplifier, and I'm going to put strings on it, and I'm going to see if it conveys itself evenly. And if it does, then I'll stick with it. If it doesn't, I might have to abandon this project. It just has too much work involved. This might be just left to be an acoustic, but it really didn't change the depth and height of this saddle too much. It should have been about a 1.5 millimeters or so, just to make up for that piece that I put in it. Now I can push it down and it seems to fit, and it doesn't come out real good, but I can take it out with pliers if I have to. I don't have to. It doesn't seem to go in as tight as I want or as loose as I want. It doesn't have the play. But we're going to have to figure that out as we come into it. But that's the job of taking on things like this. You have to take into consideration a lot of things, and it might not always work out. But if you're working with, let's say, a Martin guitar or something very high-end, you really want to take it into somebody that has the original tools that it takes, probably the StewMac tools, and over a $300 investment in them to route this out correctly and get that electrified and get yourself some real nice amplification equipment if you really want to go that way. Otherwise, I'd say just buy one like that. Like I said, I bought the Ovation. It was not electrified, and it was capable of being electrified quickly because it had standardized ability to do so. All you had to do is pull this saddle out and sand it down to the height of the piezo that fits in there and fit in. Now we're using a flexible piezo. There's little hard ones that fit in here too as well. I haven't used one of those in a while. I try not to, but I've used them mostly on passive ones, whereas there's no battery involved. This one has a battery involved. It's kind of a knockoff of a Fishman. And let's give it a shot. Let's see if I'm going to try to loosen this up a little more. I'll sand it a little more and get it done. And I'm going to try to use it as is, because the strings, when I put them on, the tension of strings will push this down quite a bit, even if it's tight. And what I'll do is I'll put, like I thought about before, I'll put a little bit of, I got to wiggle it to get it out. I'll put a little Vaseline on the edge of this just to get it sliding better. And I don't want to put enough in there to harm the piezo. So you just want to do it this way. But we'll try it and put strings on it, see if we get an even sound. If we get an even sound, we beat the battle here. If we don't, we'll have to think about how we're going to do it again and how we're going to fix it. And there's many ways. I mean, you can put toothpicks underneath it, you can go around, but it's never been an easy job. The easiest one I came across was the Ovation style guitar. The Applause, it worked out fine, and it wasn't that even some areas, so I had to remove the saddle and the piezo, and I had to level it out. Some parts of the piezos that you buy, these cheap ones, have dead areas, and that's exactly what happened with the Ovation. It had a dead area, so I had to move it up and down inside there to find the live areas, because it just didn't work right. And I don't blame it on the installation or on the saddle. I blame it on the piezo, because it had a dead area in one part of the wire there. But I think it'll work out. Let's take a look at it. Let me try to get it a little smoother. I don't want to go too much because it'll wiggle too much, and that's what we're trying to avoid by cutting into the bridge and not cutting into the saddle, because this isn't a very deep saddle. And if you sand it too much, you're going to end up with nothing to hold the strings in, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to take it a little bit at a time, and I think I'm going to try to get the edges knocked off a little bit, just the ends, and I'll tap it in.